YUNKJunk!
Hey everybody, welcome to Tubby Talk! Today we're talking about E3 because there's some news about E3 that if you stay to the end, you might find out about. Or you can also Google it now.
I'm just gonna. It's dead. They killed it.
They killed E3. All right. What does that even mean? Because have we had E3? It feels like E3 went away a long time ago.
E3 went away through a combination of mismanagement, worldwide pandemics, and more mismanagement.
Yeah, and also the industry and the world changing how they get their news and their media. I mean, you could argue that the first blow against E3 was Nintendo's Nintendo Directs.
That's a good point.
Before the Nintendo Direct, the only way they got the big news out was at E3. By the way, E3, for those like Dylan who are unfamiliar with it, it was a convention that stands for
Electronic Entertainment Expo.
Exactly.
So it was an expo.
It was an expo. It was predominantly only there for industry insiders, but people could get badges for being press. Back in the day, like getting a press badge for E3 was like a sign that you made it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people would start websites and have a couple articles and just be like, I'm the press, and they'd send you some. Sometimes you could buy a ticket. So one of the things I wanted to do, I used to have a website that focused on gaming, and I would update it very sporadically, but I'd be like, hey, I'm a press. Give me. Never did it.
You never did it?
Never did it.
I can't believe that.
HyperComboFinish.com?
Yeah, HyperComboFinish.com, still up.
HyperComboFinish.com, kids, is who sponsored today's episode of Tubby Talk.
Did I write a guest article?
I think you had.
I want to write on it. Can you put this show on it?
Yeah, I could put the show on it.
All right.
I can do whatever I want.
It's my website.
I feel like one of the things that did kill E3 though was the minor controversy a couple years before, like in the mid-teens, where they opened it up to the public and they were selling tickets.
Oh yeah, that did change things.
And then there were people that didn't want tickets sold because of the industry expo, and there's some people that did want to buy tickets because they want all the gaming news right now.
See, I could see both sides of that argument because, Disney does this pretty well of their D23. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. D23.
D23, where that's where they drop everything and still hold that old model. And it was more exciting in the past than I'm sure it is now. But gaming
because there weren't
was
trailers
fun.
every 2 weeks for teasers for upcoming things to be announced at
That's true.
E3 and things like that.
Well, that's true. I mean, E3 is where literally there were reveals. I think that's the big thing that I loved about it that we can go into. But before we do, I actually want to know more about, what do you mean mismanaged?
Well, like in my opinion, some of the mismanagement was the executives waffling on the aspect of the public being able to buy tickets. Like it was started as an industry response for the gaming industry in particular, because there were other electronic expos previously where like the Nintendo word was announced and like shopped around the purchasers. The consumer entertainment, I don't know what the S stands for, CES.
CES, yeah.
It was Computer Entertainment and Software Conference, I think it was.
Consumer Electronics Show is what it is.
Electronics Show, thank you. And that was for any kind of electronics. So you would have like White Waterhouse showing toasters and things like that. Magnavox showing like new cassette tapes.
Yeah.
So Nintendo used to show off their NES games and new stuff
Nintendo,
there at CES.
Atari, I think, was also first premiered.
Well, I'm sure when
when
Philips was in the game, I'm sure that would have been where they would have showcased, right?
Because they were already showcasing all their other consumer products, so why not the CDI there too?
Yeah. I bet Sony PlayStation even was there, right?
I don't remember. I think E3 might have existed by that point, and maybe not. Well, it's interesting.
Oh no,
because
it's not. It's 94 for Sony PlayStation, isn't it?
When it would have been announced, yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Well, yeah, another thing. So E3 though then became like the big place for games because they were like, hey, we want a thing just for games.
Yeah. Actually, just for American games, because there was also the Tokyo Game Show, which I think still goes on, but it was big around the time the PlayStation was announced. It actually might have been announced at TGS.
So do we think the cancellation of E3 is good, bad, indifferent?
I'm indifferent.
Okay.
I hadn't thought about E3 in a while until I heard it was canceled, and I was like, good riddance.
I was sort of indifferent as well because, like you kind of said, we haven't really had an E3, like a real one, for a couple years anyway, and we've been fine. It's also, though, like just talking about the hype cycle in general.
Yeah.
As, I don't know, I've gotten older, I don't get that hype for games.
Yeah.
Like I like hearing about it, like, oh, there's a new game coming out, cool. But the thing that gets people hyped usually is like a sequel to a game that they've already played.
True.
And at this point, like, it's like, oh, it's more of the same. Okay, a sequel.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, you're making another. Great. Good.
I mean, yeah, you're right. It's just the very nature of how news is disseminated now. You can't really control the hype train anymore. One, leaks are going to happen. A bunch of leaks for E3 for the past 10 years were just accurate. So we already we spoiled it ourselves. We already knew everything that was going to come out. But also, we're internet kids. You know, it's like we found it out. We probably watched a beautiful trailer in 4K on a nice monitor, you know, without a crowd. You know, cheering anything so that we could enjoy it, but it's also not the same. Yeah. I miss the cheers of excitement when something was announced or released. So I look back at E3 happily, although there were definitely some E3 disasters. Like, you know, this is definitely a rose-colored glasses segment that we're doing right now, because I can remember E3 when it was on videotape and Nintendo Power would send you the tape. Or like their coverage at E3, and it would be all of like the new things coming out. You know, I remember Killer Instinct had its own videotape that came out before or at the same time E3 went on, so you could be part of it. But you know what that does? That also gives credence to the fact that I liked that it was industry insiders, and then something else came to the public. Right? I kind of like the idea of we're crafting something. We want it to be perfect before we give it out to everyone. Yeah. Right. And back in the day, the E3 trailers you didn't see. They happened in that place, in that room, and then you just didn't see
before
them.
The internet, you could not see them unless you got a VHS somewhere that someone had. But even then, like, it was, you read about it a month later in a magazine. That was how you got your news.
Yeah.
But it was exciting at the time because it was the only place you got gaming news. It was the only, and now gaming news, like, I feel like there was an explosion and now an implosion.
Yep.
But you still have like mainstream non-nerd or non-gaming websites still talk about games all the time. Like Forbes has a huge gaming column,
which did not used to be the case.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Well, then it became a billion-dollar industry.
Yeah. But like I still wouldn't think of Forbes as the place I go to for video game news.
But to be honest, I don't know where to go for video game news anymore, other than YouTube podcasts and things like that, because. You know, I'm not going to IGN because that's a little slanted. I'm not going to Kotaku because that's also a little. Something happened with gaming media where like they just destroyed themselves. I think, you know, this is what happens when something nerdy gets cool and then people want to report on it. And it's like, I don't think you have a love for gaming. I don't think that's why you're in this. And I think that it just imploded. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
it's like Silicon Valley.
I feel like when we, like, in our college years, like the early aughts, like it was huge for games. Like I remember it was kind of like a meta game itself, watching the gaming news and being like, oh, what's coming out?
I'm trying to figure out if it was huge, but you still had IGN. Still had Kotaku back then. You had Joystick.
Yeah, but they were different then.
Yeah, but they were like blogs.
They were blogs.
Just like full-fledged sites. Like EGM didn't really have a site. GameSpot's site was bad.
Yeah,
eventually IGN bought them out. If I remember correctly, because GameSpot's website was so bad.
Well, right, and now like blogs are not profitable, so like that industry kind of imploded.
Yeah,
but also it wasn't
featured content and stuff like that. Feature advertisers.
But a lot of the writers from the old media and the old industry were the same guys who were writing the game FAQs and doing it like text-based. Like they were into gaming. I think my point is just like something really weird happened in video games, like somewhere in the 20 teens. I think it just got too hot and too close to mainstream that you had edgelords come in. Is that what the term edgelord is from? Because you're on the edge of society?
One of the turning points, I think, was the advent of G4, the TV station. Yeah. They made a TV station about video games, and I don't know, I felt like that kind of brought a lot of like the bro culture.
Well, that's where Olivia Munn is from.
Yes. I mean, I remember most like Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb and X-Play and...
Is that where Jeff Keighley's from too?
I think he might be, yeah.
I do remember Adam Sessler. That's right, skinny guy.
Yeah.
We're sweaters.
Oh, and there's the guy who co-founded Dig.com, and he got really famous.
Dig.com?
Yeah. He was on G4. But that was Tech TV. Before there was Tech TV and
Tech
G4.
TV,
yep. But this is also this is before Spike, what we're talking about.
Or did they merge with Spike?
Spike bought G4?
Bought G4, okay.
It's defunct now. I mean, all of they tried to relaunch G4 with like actual YouTubers that I like, and it isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
which is a bummer.
There was something about like, this is so mainstream, we're making a 24/7 television station about it. Like that's a different level of
it wasn't quite
exposure.
that mainstream. It's seeing as it didn't succeed. They were talking about the same games every it came like any other news channel, 24-hour cable news channel. You talk about the same news all day.
What's it, 24 hours?
Yeah, G4. I mean, they'd run reruns.
Yeah,
stuff,
it was its own network. It wasn't like
Yeah.
it shared a channel with something else like MTV would do sometimes.
I just think, I mean, maybe that's why another reason why E3 might have gone away is like the media reporting on these things wasn't fun anymore. It wasn't, and maybe it's not that it wasn't fun, it's that there were other ideas involved instead of like a cool game's coming out. Look at how cool it is.
Yeah, like it wasn't as necessary because G4 needed content or things like that blogs needed content. So they're asking the devs, the publishers, what do you have for us? What do you have for us? If you don't have something, we're going to go to this other company.
Yeah.
Especially when you had the console wars. They're like, oh, Sony, you're not giving us anything. We're going to go to Microsoft. So I feel like that kind of led to exclusives being more of a thing between the different, Microsoft and Sony in particular. Because they wanted something that they could show the media, like, hey, look at what cool stuff we're doing that nobody else is doing.
Why did we stop caring though?
I mean, part of it is we got old, right? You got different things going. I'm sure that's a big part of it, but a lot of it is the news is, I don't know. It's hard to look forward to things that you've already seen, right? And
That's a really good point.
so if people are like, hey, here's a brand new, like, random Kirby game. I'm like, great, I love Kirby. Kirby's great. I'm not excited about it. Unless it's some radically new thing.
That is a great point, because you know what the last big E3 probably was? It was probably the Wii. It was probably when Nintendo Wii was displayed at E3. Because that was something entirely different.
Yeah, nothing we were
that
expecting.
subsequently went away.
Yeah.
And that was the same
But
year.
it was motion, like we were in a different thing. You know, the same as the jump from SNES to N64. We were in a different thing, and it was blowing your mind. We haven't seen anything that blows our mind.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the Wii because that was Nintendo, and Nintendo had this culture of showing up to consumer trade shows or industries trade shows and saying like, hey, here's this new thing we have. You haven't heard about this till now, but look at it. Don't you want it? You'll get it next year. And they still kind of try to maintain that now. Like for a couple years before E3 died, they were doing their own.
ET died.
They're doing their own Nintendo Direct press conferences for E3.
Yeah.
For like last 5, 6, 7 years now, I think.
a long time.
So
Well,
they were
they're doing
breaking
them
their-
in spite of.
Yeah,
they're not going
they were.
to E3.
They were not
Right.
appear at E3 and then releasing Nintendo Direct, and then Sony and Microsoft started doing that as well, or doing like keynotes before the actual conference.
But it was interesting because like they still had a presence on the floor. Like you still went, all right, now go to the Nintendo booth and you can play these games.
Look at the stuff Nintendo told you about on Nintendo's YouTube channel, but play it at E3. It's like it's different than being like, hey, everybody found out at E3 because it's like to your point, people knew about it already, but Nintendo still kept it close to their vest who they were going to tell.
Yeah, I in my world, you know, of media and whatnot, certainly the rule of thumb and what everybody says is any business needs to become its own media company, its own network, its own broadcaster is the term that was always
Own
used.
streaming service.
Pretty much, yeah. So it was like, it went in line with where marketing was going of like, you don't need NBC anymore. You can do it yourself if you're big enough. People will just go and watch it on your website, which Nintendo did. And that definitely, I think, is a reason why E3 went down, because I remember lots of wonderful E3 Nintendo experiences.
Oh yeah. I mean that E3, I think you're right. The Wii was the last like big one. PS3 was at the same time.
Oh, that's right.
It was just these, and anytime like there was a console like reveal, like that was the biggest like day in gaming. It was just like, oh my god, we're learning about a new console, and a lot of the new consoles are so samey now. But back then, they were not.
Because you were leaping generations of graphic fidelity and musical fidelity and gameplay complexity, where we haven't for the last since PlayStation 4. Maybe even before that.
Yeah,
it's just
feel like
slightly higher spec versions of the same
I have
thing.
like no hype at all from PS4 to PS5 and Xbox One to whatever it is now to the series. And the thing is, like, honestly, when they release the new Switch, I'm not going to be that. If it's just a more powerful Switch, like, cool, I want that, but I'm not hyped for that.
Yeah, and I don't know what games they made for it. E3, that's what it is. E3 was where a new console was born.
Yes.
I think is what it was. So you were excited for E3 because there was a chance someone was dropping a whole new system. And because a lot of it was fast and loose back in the day. Like, when we heard Project Dolphin was a thing, which was the code name for GameCube, you didn't know which E3 it was coming at, but you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And they talked about that for years. So there was a little bit of hype of like, oh, the next system, next system, next system.
Well, like ideally, explicitly though, the media talked about it for years. Nintendo was like, this Project Dolphin said nothing else for the next 3 years. Everybody else, oh my God, what could it be? What could it be? We don't know what it's going to be.
Well, I remember they dropped breadcrumbs for the Wii. They were just like, oh, it's a completely new controller.
Yeah.
But it lets you play games from any of our systems in the past. And that's all they said. And I was like, what could it be? My mind is reeling with my mind was reeling with the possibilities and it ended up being the Wii remote was the new way, and it had a dongle that connected to the classic controller so you could play any old game.
Dylan,
that's what it ended up being.
Can we see E3 Wii? But you might want to just have that on mute. Because actually, this is a really interesting topic, and I hope you guys, awesome. I hope you guys at home enjoy this, because like, I can talk about this stuff forever of like how earth-shattering it was when the E3 Wii Reveal, and we'll just
there's Iwata himself.
Yeah, Iwata, R.I.P. What a wonderful man. His book used to be on this site.
Yeah.
It's not here anymore. But this is what we lived for, is things like this. I mean, look at him in his glory. That's Steve Jobs style, entertainment. And Nintendo, the Nintendo Revolution is what it was codenamed as, and bam, there it is.
Yeah, and they're like, whoa!
And there's a ton of clapping.
Here it is.
Interesting. He pulled out the black one.
Yes,
instead of
they
the white
changed the branding entirely because the Revolution was supposed to be this cool underground thing, and they kind of changed it up to like, no, we want the whole family to love this. And at the time, this was like Apple, all their very white aesthetic was in, so they were like, all right, we're gonna make the main one white.
What year is this? 2005. So this is 2 years before the iPhone.
Yeah,
because the iPhone drop is 2007.
Yeah,
of like iPods, the famous, the world is over, BlackBerry is dead.
Yeah, the iPods had been around for a couple years,
which is crazy because that. Really? So, but Steve Jobs was underway of like Apple branding and
like they started
the iPod
design. Like they started the design aesthetic with the iPod. Like a couple generations into the iPod, they started coming up with how the iPhone would eventually look. It was an iPod with a full screen.
It looks so much cooler there than it didn't real life. Like with that blue glow, like it does blue glow. But like,
well, you know what? It looks like a PlayStation.
It does look like a PlayStation.
Looks like a PlayStation.
You're totally
Maybe
right.
that's it.
And they were like, hey, it plays everything. And
Dylan,
we're like,
this is great.
We're like,
how are you not as excited as us, Dylan?
And I was just like, how is it
Super Mario Brothers on a little black box?
Oh, it's funny. It turns into the same blue as like the Wii menu. Like, I wonder.
Awesome.
If that was intentional.
So, like, okay, well, look at our faces. Like, you can see, even now, this classic stuff is making me excited because they used to do it. It used to be a spectacle. He had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
In that we loved Iwata.
Yes.
We loved Iwata. Not as much as another guy. There is a guy named Reggie Fils-Aime.
Fils-Aime.
Who, along with Iwata, really kind of set the tone for what you could do. I mean, I remember when he announced this one, Donkey Kong Country Returns coming out. This guy had stage presence. Now, this was after the iPhone, but if you listen, you can hear people saying like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And there's
clapping.
Yeah, that part.
It's like they didn't believe it until they started seeing the side scrolling. They're like,
exactly. And this is what it was about. Of like, this is what we're talking about. Of they would release. This is a long-awaited sequel, though. So this isn't just like, okay, Donkey Kong Country 2 is coming out. It's like, no, remember this game you loved 20 years ago?
Well, like, he's finally here.
Well, like, not for nothing though. Like, but also part of the reveal is it starts with what you think is a cutscene. And then the graphics stay the same. It just changes the camera angle and it goes right to the gameplay.
Yeah,
so I think that's why a lot of people are gasping.
Still beautiful.
Yeah, because at that stage, you didn't have Nintendo games, especially that type of graphical fidelity.
That's true, because this is a Wii game.
Yeah, this is one of the best looking Wii games. It still holds up to this day. You still play this game, and I'm like, man, this animation.
Yeah, I recently I played the Wii U port. Not the port, the Wii
Tropical
version,
Freeze,
Tropical Freeze on the Switch.
Yeah.
That was lovely to play. It's so fun.
Beautiful.
But again, like watching this, you just see two masters, and everyone. The reason we're talking about Apple is everyone thinks of Steve Jobs' iPhone moment as like, all right, now in tech, this is the only way to do it. You got to be on stage in a black turtleneck, and you got to hold up one thing. 30 Rock did an amazing spoof of it once, of explaining what TGS is, and Tina Fey's in the all black. She's like, "This is TGS," and it cuts to Tracy Morgan, and like a shot of like, "We got to get all these farts back in the fart machine." And it was good, but you could see like everyone there is hurriedly typing and letting people know what was happening, because we were on the birth of the constant news cycle, but we were not in the Twitterverse yet.
No,
that's what it is.
Oversaturation.
Social media does a lot of good, but it also takes the joy out of excitement buildup, I think, is what I'm trying to say. I think that'd be fair to say.
Too constant.
Yeah.
And there's not enough time to let it breathe. Like, the thing is, like, so that Iwata presentation, I'm pretty sure they did not show the controller at all.
Yeah, they just held up a thing.
They held up the thing. They're like, it's going to be able to play all the old games, and there'll be new games too. We'll tell you more later. And then we were just like, well, what's the controller like? And so it gave us months of speculation, just like, what's this thing going to be? Yeah. It's like some awesome mind game you got to figure out.
And then it was the dumbest controller they've.
Well, that was the
Wii controller so much.
You know what? That's another thing. That's like the dark side of E3 is we were way too excited for these things. They could never live up to to our expectations. But I don't know. I was very much like a Disney kid and stuff. So like when someone creates imagination in my mind, there's magic. There's wonder. Mario wonder.
Yeah. And in fact, like, that's the first time I remember being kind of hyped for games. It's back in the Wii era. The thing is, though, I was an adult then. I was in my...
Well, you were hyped because you could afford to buy them yourself. And didn't have to wait for one for Christmas.
Good point. Well, my sweet spot...
I think that killed it, too, Sam. Like, if you're able to buy whatever you want, whenever you want, like a game, like, relatively inexpensive for an adult with disposable income, like $50. Ah! I spend that on a nice dinner. I'll buy a game for that. But when you get one a year, it's so much more special.
Don't forget to watch our Christmas episode, because it's Christmas Day, and that's all about that sort of thing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I bet that does have something to do with it. But I remember my hype train was in when I was in high school, like because I was so, wardened off from the internet and things like that, just because of my age and you guys too. When we were below high school, like you had to get a videotape in the mail. You had to get something like that. You had to read about it in a magazine. GameCube rolled around, I had limited access. Like, there were different Nintendo websites. Side note, do you remember the Donkey Kong Country website?
No, not very well.
Dylan, can you Google the Donkey Kong Country website from like the 90s that like you could go on to?
My favorite one back in the day was N64.com, which is where they talked about N64. It was eventually bought by IGN.
Data images. Keep going. Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like it was a fan site basically, and that's like you felt the passion. You'd be like, oh, you see rumors about what's coming up in the N64 next, and eventually they would talk about the Dolphin.
It was like they were like Flash websites.
Oh God, yeah.
Hit that bottom right next to related searches. I just want to see what that says.
The Nintendo
bottom right.
At the bottom is beige with text Donkey Kong. Bottom of the screen.
Bottom of the screen. That.
Yeah.
It's taken 22 man years, 32 megs, 32,768 colors, and one supercomputer. Thank you, Dumb. To make him look this gruesome.
Gruesome.
What a word.
That's not the word I was expecting to see.
No,
as I was reading through that
that's
copy.
Very strange.
So sorry, that's not what I was looking for, and it was a tangent anyway, so don't worry about
It's not gruesome. That's what Donkey Kong looks like.
Well, that's what
his fur is kind of weird,
like.
but on his.
But this was, you know what? I can get this back to what we're talking about. That is how we knew about a new game. That was the only way we knew about a new game.
An advertisement. Single
image, some text, and right there's the game cover. But we knew nothing. That's all we had to go with, and that fosters imagination. You immediately try and draw that thing a million times, right? You like, why gruesome? He looks great.
Well, now what's amazing is like you get an announcement, like a trailer drops, and like within an hour, there's people on Twitter with fan art already of the thing. Like, they are so fast with the fan art.
Sorry, I know this is a tangent. Is that supercomputer they're referencing the like Silicon Graphics workstation thing everybody used back then?
The Silicon Graphics workstation they used to actually render the Donkey Kong Country graphics. Yeah, that's what they're talking about.
Pre-rendered.
Okay, that's the
free
first
rent.
Donkey Kong Countries. That's the
Yeah,
the
that's
first
the.
one.
I could tell by the box art, even from all the way over here.
The 22 man
I'm a
years.
cool guy.
It's funny. 22 man years refers to the work on it, but 32 megs refers to the cartridge
size of
Yeah.
size.
Yeah.
And the colors is how many colors can be displayed on a Super Nintendo. But the other stuff, like some of it's and a supercomputer, which we also use to shove things down, like 32 megabytes, bits, very tiny, very tiny.
I mean,
Eggs.
for some context, back then they used to Silicon Graphics was a company that made graphics software and like workstations. Everybody that read video gaming magazines knew about Silicon Graphics workstations.
Yeah.
Because they were like, when a new one came out, you're like, oh, what are they gonna make now?
Like I dreamed of the day when I would be able to touch one.
Yeah. They were like, oh, they only cost $5,000 a piece. And we're like, oh, I can save that up and get one of these days.
Yeah, like one day I want to make video games. I'm going to get myself a Silicon Graphics workstation. And by the time I was old enough to do that, they were obsolete.
Do you think accessibility is also a factor here in that, like, you know, to kind of your point, like anybody who is reading a Nintendo, you know, maybe not Nintendo Power, but like a deep video game thing where they were interested in the computers and stuff, you're already kind of like a captured market for that, of like you're already nerdy.
Yeah.
So you're into other nerdy things. And like now accessibility, what I mean is it's mainstream so that you're not going to find any of that tech jargon in there unless you go looking for it, where it was just built into the media that we were exposed to when looking for gaming news.
That's a good point. I think to some degree you're right, but also like it was also nonsense stuff. Like they just throw numbers in, like the Jaguar 64-bit, and we didn't know what that meant.
One of the biggest marketing points for the Atari Jaguar was it has 16.7 million colors.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool, but if you're not going to render stuff in 16.7 million colors, why do I care?
Yeah, but they just look bigger numbers. They're so that a lot of that's marketing.
Yeah.
And that's how tech marketing worked back then. It still kind of does that day. Like right now, they'll be like, hey, you can get a phone. It's either like the X gig version or the Y gig version, and that's the differentiator, and that's all like they really talk about.
Yeah.
And you see it with televisions, you got 4K, and then if you're on the bleeding edge, you got your 8K monitor, man. It's,
8K HDR.
yeah.
Let's go.
UHDR or UHDR, whatever the heck they call it.
Yeah, so number go bigger, like that's marketing.
The worst thing I saw recently is Xfinity and their 10G wireless internet.
Yeah, 10.
Where at least up until 5G, it was based on the generation of like the
Yeah, the
chipset
LTE,
used.
yeah.
And then
Now
they're just
they're
like,
like,
now it's 10G. We doubled it.
Yeah, just make it. That's some Jaguar nonsense
Yeah, I was like, just
happening
call
there.
it Xfinity G at that point.
But so the accessibility. So you're saying like the jargon got less technical and perhaps
Yeah.
more mainstream,
Yeah.
perhaps to some degree.
well, yeah, that would make it more understandable to the random game player or random consumer. That's like, oh, I'm going to buy this system because it has all the new games, as opposed to I'm going to buy this system because it's twice as powerful as my kid's old system, but plays other games.
Yeah, I think what I'm kind of referring to, I guess, kind of speaks to fandom and whatnot. Of when you mainstream a thing, you know, there's not you have to make sure everyone can understand the messaging instead of, you know, tailoring it to people who can actually comprehend and understand it and are already baked into it. So I'm wondering, my point is, I think E3 literally tried to do that when they opened up to the public.
Well, yeah, part of it's because the public was clamoring for access because they wanted to be able to experience everything that E3, everything we talked about, E3 meaning to us, they wanted to experience that firsthand. The problem with that, at least with the way, which is why I say it was mismanaged, is because it was for press, gaming press, to find out stuff to disseminate to. It was part of the process.
Yeah.
If the public are there in the middle of it, it diffuses that process. There's a reason for them to have a press event if the press aren't solely the attendees. Like just like if it's similar to what happened with CES. It was for people buying consumer electronics. But if you're just trying to market video games to a niche audience, why do you go to the generalist convention? We can make your own niche convention.
That's true.
Because they also had a little bit off topic. They also had the same problem at CES with adult film stuff. That was also all premiered at CES. And so you kind of had the dichotomy of like video games, toasters, and porn. all at one thing.
Yeah, it's like
I mean,
maybe
it
a bit
sounds
too
like
broad.
a great place to be.
I mean, apparently CS was really fun, like back in the day. It still happens.
I mean, it sounds like you had toasters and porn stars. I mean,
Yeah.
working, you know.
Well, people
you
would
live
have
your best
parties
life.
and like they'd have parties to woo people, and they'd be like, "Hey, check out our sweet toasters." But wait, toasters aren't interesting. But we got a heck of a party. We got the best booze. Come over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like,
Well, you know what had the same problem? Comic-Con. Like Comic-Con used to premiere movie trailers at like Hall H, but we've already all seen them already. But that was all public, and now no one gives a shit.
But even before that, Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con was for the hard nosed,
that's
like comics people, and they would go, and then they started making comic movies more often, so they started showing trailers at Hall H, and then it became a thing.
Then it went mainstream.
Yeah, then it became a more mainstream thing. Now, the difference between that and E3 is that was already a public event and not a press event.
Good point.
It kind of was made into a press event because now every vaguely entertainment adjacent site and blog is sending people to San Diego Comic-Con.
It kind of backed into it the other direction, right? Because it started like, this is for fans. And then they're like, well, you know, the industry's gotten so big, let's make it bigger.
Yeah. Like basically, they were giving out some media passes back in the 80s. And now people are like, oh, we can't sell more tickets because too many media are showing up. Where E3 had the opposite, or could have had the opposite problem of, oh, we can't fit in enough media because too many random consumers are showing up.
Yeah.
I think another big difference is the kind of the way attention and the hot take commodities have changed. Like you're talking about how social media has changed.
Yeah.
But right now, like you don't necessarily watch the thing it comes out. You watch reactions to the thing. You'd be like, hey, what did my influencer of choice think of this announcement?
And I absolutely do that, and it is fun.
Oh yeah, you do it, and like I've done it too. But then at the same time, like I didn't actually see the primary source, but I have an opinion about this thing, which is screwed up, right? Like I didn't actually. Why do I have an opinion about this thing? I didn't even watch the trailer for. I watched somebody's opinion of the trailer, and that informs my opinion, and that's.
See, you just went out of order though. You watch the trailer, then you see what everybody else thought about it.
Well, that should be the way you go. But there's a lot of people, like just kids, who don't even play games now. They watch people play games, and then they're like, well, that's my favorite game to watch. And it's kind of like that. I don't even watch the news anymore. I see what people said about the news.
That's true.
Like,
True.
What did my favorite? And we all have our favorite talking heads, and they shift over time. But like, it just.
But also, even the idea of a talking head has gone away.
Well, so I would argue.
Yeah, I don't know. All the talking heads that were there in the 90s are still there.
Your
I just noticed
YouTubers
a bunch
and
yesterday. No, you just have more.
I'm
like
just
Chris
saying,
on internet now.
I don't even look to a talking head for a source of information anymore.
Yeah, not for information per se, but you might for opinions and hot takes.
Hot takes. Hot takes.
I mean, back in my day, that's all talking heads were for, which were opinions.
True.
Right.
Like you had the anchor on your local news or whatever, or national news, but it was like, we're telling you facts.
Yeah.
And other people that are like, yeah, well, I'm here to talk about, and now everybody's just an editorializing everything.
Yeah, we need more. That's a big part of it.
We need more Jim Gardners in the world.
Yeah, it's true. We're from Philly.
He has a podcast now, by the way.
Does he? Oh yeah, we almost made it.
Oh, okay.
We had a conversation.
Sorry, then I was like, you should did it. He's like, oh, you tried.
Yeah. The day we lost Jim Gardner. Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I mean, it's just the landscape of news and getting information is so different now that I get it. I even get it from a financial standpoint. You know, Nintendo makes their stuff in-house, and it's like, you got a big screen at your thing? Here, play it there. You know, like even there was definitely, you know, you're gonna find out if I'm right or wrong. I believe there was definitely a time where Nintendo Directs took place at E3, but Nintendo had no one on the stage.
Yeah.
It was just like, now a presentation from Nintendo is starting.
Oh,
they control every part of that in that case.
Like, you mean like Nintendo airing their video on stage at E3?
That's what I'm saying. I think that's what they did, and that's kind of brilliant because nothing can go wrong. Unless they cut the feed.
There have been lots of things. Things going wrong. It went wrong.
Well, one of the reasons they changed that was all of the gaffes that happened at E3, which is one part of the culture of E3, right? Every E3 has some famous thing, one or multiple like crazy gaffes.
You had a bunch of either nerdy devs that are trying to explain what they worked on for the last 5 years to somebody, or you had a bunch of stuffed shirt CEOs that don't know anything about games trying to talk to gamers and just saying stuff like the famous giant enemy crab.
Yeah,
which we have a clip.
Yeah, let's go to the clip on that
show.
one.
Was that PlayStation 2?
This is PlayStation 3.
3.
Ooh. Oh, forward.
1 hour of silence, occasionally interrupted by
Denki 2 is an action game which is based on Japanese history. The stages of the game will also be based on famous battles which actually took place in ancient Japan. So here's this giant enemy crab.
It's so good. It's still.
It is the best.
I will never not laugh at that clip.
That is
Actually happened in Japan. So here's this giant enemy crab.
I mean, the best part, it's just a bunch of dorks who have no presentation skills. And that's what was fun. What was the Xbox One reveal? Famously bad, right?
Yeah,
All the way
I
to
don't know if
top
there was
left?
like a specific like laugh part, but just like it
Look
was
at his face.
the highlights. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Xbox One.
Like what? Why?
TV
Why that?
experience. TV and movies, TV. Xbox, watch
Oh
TV.
yeah, because
TV,
most
TV,
of the
TV,
they would also talk about all the TV stuff you could do. You're like, what about the games?
TV.
Oh, those
watch
two.
TV. TV. TV and TV remote. TV experience.
This is
TV,
awesome, whoever did
TV,
this.
TV. Sports TV. Anybody? TV.
And this
TV,
is what we're
TV,
talking about,
TV,
though. Yeah, he's
TV,
not talking about
TV.
gaming.
Xbox.
Yeah.
This is
Go.
exact that
TV,
perfect clip.
TV,
Whoever.
TV.
But you remember,
Sports,
this was the console war. This was the second console war. I just watched the
Sports television.
you can kill it. I just watched the Game of Thrones parody on South Park that's all about Black Friday, and the boys are deciding are they getting a PS4 or an Xbox One.
Yes.
And in that, they're even like, the Xbox One is where everyone's going because it's going to be one place for all your media, including TV. That is exactly the point,
Yeah, it's from that.
because it's from that perspective.
That was
it's like,
that was
that's
their
not
angle.
the gaming.
They were just like, hey, you know what? It's roughly comparable to the PS4 in terms of gaming progress. So what's the thing that
only thing,
differentiates
yeah,
us?
TV.
We have TV.
Yeah. TV.
Nobody
TV.
cared. And everyone lambasted. It's the worst selling Xbox. I think the new one's overtaken it by this point. I would hope. They don't really release their numbers so much. But the Xbox One did not do well.
Is Xbox not doing well since the 360?
In general. So the 360 did great in America, particularly.
Yeah.
It was
Nobody bought it in Japan.
Yeah, nobody bought it in Japan. Like
Well,
They sold like
That's
50.
the helm of Sony.
Yeah, but it was like 50,000 units. Like because
like
Xbox,
really
Xbox was
bad.
marketed with like Halo and other types of Western games.
Yeah.
And they're like, we just don't care. We got lots of Japanese or global games.
And another thing that used to be true, I don't know if it still is, but back then they'd be like, well, Japanese households tend to be smaller. People live in apartments.
The Xbox
and it's
was
like-
huge.
The Xbox was this big honking thing. But then the PlayStation has gotten even
also a
bigger.
big honking
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
The PS5 is like the hugest thing.
You know what, though? Everyone is still playing PS4. Like, when PS5 came out, everyone was still playing PS4. Now, you could say that that's because of, issues of stock or whatnot. But the fact is, there wasn't really a big need to upgrade.
There still
the
isn't.
need to upgrade isn't there.
There are a total of 12 platform. There's only like 12 games that only play on PS5. It's
Name
been
'em.
what, 2 years? Demon Souls, which
There
it
was
launched
a
with.
remake, Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
Ooh, well, that's a console.
There was
They could put it on PS4. Actually, possibly. I don't know.
they made that one
Spec-wise.
game that was like Splatoon, but not Splatoon, about color blobs. I forget the name. But yeah, a couple
Color blobs.
Yeah,
Yeah, there aren't many.
there aren't many. And so like even still, we're like 2-3 years into that cycle, and all the games you could still
Yeah.
so like it doesn't matter.
I'll tell you what was super exciting, though. Well, yeah, that's it. It's not even worth being excited about. I hate to say that, but it's not. It's not enough of a leap. But one thing was a huge leap, and that was the Zelda demo from Nintendo Spaceworld. So that's Ocarina.
Yeah.
But this demo, holy
Which
shit.
I had never seen. And now
And by the way, this was Spaceworld. So this was not
also
E3.
never saw Meowth rocking out with a guitar. What is this?
So this was the launch. Like, this is the first time we saw next generation
Oh, okay.
content. So that original Pokemon thing, that's not real. This blew our goddamn minds because it is right after Ocarina of Time. This is in the year 2000. We've been, Ocarina was 98. We had that battle, but we'd never seen it like this.
I never saw this whole clip. I'm glad I didn't see it because I would have been real disappointed when none of this stuff came out.
Yeah.
That didn't come out? Yeah, to
I'm so
demonstrate. You see that? But, okay, here's the one that we all still want.
Mario
This was called
128.
Mario 128. And this is from Spaceworld, which is essentially, you know,
Well, Spaceworld was Nintendo's own. It was just Nintendo, their own conference. Yeah.
oh, it was
Yeah,
Spaceworld is just
Spaceworld
Nintendo.
was just Nintendo. It was
So-
at Shoshinkai in Japan.
But I remember that. That was life changing.
Well, yeah,
that
it
was
looks
game-changing.
so much. It's such a huge leap from the previous generation.
Yeah, which was already 3D polygon. Dylan, if you go back to the Legend of Zelda Ocarina, this to me was one of the greatest things to ever happen on E3, which is, and look at it. It's blocky.
Yeah.
It's-
And this is a particularly bad video of it, but
That's true.
it looks nothing.
I mean, this is how it looks on the 3DS.
Willst thou run
I couldn't play it.
or fly? Or fly.
Or run on a different horse.
Why, you fools?
This was
Lord
before
of the
that.
Rings.
Well, technically after that.
Yeah, what's that line in the book?
Or swim. But this was crazy. I definitely remember this E3 trailer. Because like we had never seen anything like this. This is the first like 3D sword game, I believe. It's one of the first 3D. It's definitely the first 3D action adventure game from Nintendo.
And
Of
it
like
just
a
looks-
property that we know.
It looks so cinematic. And before the game before this was A Link to the
Or
Past.
Whilst Thou Suck? Did you see that? Whilst Thou Win or Whilst That Suck? But boom, I mean,
November 23rd. We're already past that.
What it takes.
get into it. Anyway, that is I'm hyped right now. Like I can go back to that. I remember that. Christmas was coming right after that. They knew what they were doing. E3 was summertime,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then it would let everyone know about
Late
what the big
June.
holiday games were or the holiday consoles, which I think is what they did best.
I mean, usually holiday consoles.
Yeah.
Sega had released a Saturn, I think, right after E3 or something dumb like that. Like they announced it at E3 and was like, it's available next week.
No, they shouted up. They're like, it's available now. And the problem
yeah.
with the Saturn was that the developers were not done making the games. And they were like, what?
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
So what did they sell them? They just sold the
So
system
they
and no
sold them
game?
and they had like 2 or 3 games out. And they were just like, the rest is coming later. And they were just like, what?
Sega made some mistakes, man.
And then a couple
just
years
did.
later, they released the Dreamcast for $99.99.
Yep. And the Dreamcast was great.
Yeah, it's also not a holiday season.
Yes.
Wait, it was $100?
No, they dropped it on September 9th, 2009.
Oh, okay.
1999.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But like, just for the alliteration, but to be cutesy, but it was like, but you should drop it in November or December for the holiday rush.
so
Because by then, everybody that once one had one, everybody else is going to buy. GameCube came out the next year, right? Came out 2000, did it come out 99?
2000, well, we just watched the tech demo for
2001.
2000.
2001.
People just went and bought more N64s for Christmas.
Or PlayStation.
So we just kind of witnessed, though, like the dark side of E3 is sometimes they would overpromise something.
Yeah.
That video we
Yeah.
watched of GameCube,
I don't know.
everyone was clamoring nonstop. Where is that Zelda game?
mean-
and what did they do? They gave us Wind Waker.
I mean, to be
To
fair,
give that and then drop Wind Waker. I understand
Like, to be
nerd
fair,
rage.
yeah,
I love Wind
yeah,
Waker,
now-
but I understand the
yeah,
nerd
now
rage.
I more understand why people are mad about Wind Waker.
That's
Because I
exactly
didn't get
it.
why they were so mad, but also
That's why.
that video clearly said is a tech demo. That's reading comprehension fail on all the people that got hyped over it.
I was
Yeah,
in
yeah.
8th grade. Like, that's not fair.
But yeah, this is Wind Waker. This is what
But
we got.
this
So
came out
You saw that
but
big,
yeah,
epic, sweeping,
yeah, now I get why-
dramatic
yeah, I
battle,
get why
and then we
people are
get,
mad at this.
this is what is this cartoony baby Link?
This was the first time I actually really remember people being genuinely upset.
being
from
very
E3.
mad. I remember seeing this and I was like, oh, it's a new cool art style.
Yeah, I felt
But
I
you
was
didn't
like,
see that.
Yeah,
See, I was tainted with that.
I didn't see the tech demo.
and also, that Metroid never came out.
yeah, but
Well,
a lot
Metroid
of the
Prime
the
did.
little Metroid Prime,
And I
took
never
some of
got to
that.
play guitar as Meowth
Yeah, that
on stage.
well, I don't want to hear anything from any of that because it was announced at E3. Starcraft Ghost still to this day
Oh, my
has not
God.
come out, and I'm still mad about it.
Have you
'cause I wanna
heard of
play
that?
the game so
No,
bad.
this is great. Can
Look
we
up the
Google
trailer
this?
for Starcraft Ghost.
It was
this was
it was
do
an
you
action
mean?
game
It never-
spinoff from
hell.
Starcraft.
It was in development hell forever. So yeah, Starcraft, great real-time strategy series on the PC. They were going to make a console game that was an action game, an action adventure stealth game called Starcraft Ghost, and they had it up and working forever.
It even had gameplay, but
This never came out?
no,
never came out.
It's supposed to come out on GameCube. I remember that was one of the reasons I got a GameCube.
Supposed to come out on GameCube. That's
supposed to come out-
GameCube?
This isn't. I think this is after a couple more years of working.
So
on
it was supposed to come out
Personnel
on
from-
PS2, Xbox,
See if you could find the
original
E3
Xbox
version,
and GameCube. Was
Dylan.
But so yeah, the whole concept of this was that you were a ghost who was a unit in StarCraft. You played as a character named Nova, and
Yeah,
you would-
2003 is when the trailer.
it was the first time like anyone who was into StarCraft, you got to see.
Whoa, look at this graphic.
Yeah.
E3 Access 2005.
Yeah, this is 2 years after they announced it.
Look at that thing.
And they're still talking
Dylan,
about
we
this
gotta
game
make
they're
one
making.
of those. That thing was awesome.
But especially at that time, like I loved that style of action game. They came
Me
out like the
too.
early aughts, and I didn't have a PlayStation, so I didn't get to play like Siphon Filter and stuff like that. So when I was like, oh, there's gonna be a game on the GameCube, we get to play a third-person action,
Stealth action game.
and it was like, I was like, okay, so it's Metal Gear Solid, but you know, you got guns in case you need to get out of
It's Jeff Force
trouble.
Gemini.
Well, those people look.
Speaking of which, they're releasing that on the Switch Virtual Console
saw.
in the adults only section.
Oh, why? Adults only. Interesting.
I don't know why, but they're making a new it's like age gated adults only like
It is
branch
kind of
of it.
bloody.
Seeing a
You're
Hydralisk
dying.
up on. So this is a real-time strategy game inherently. So you see everything from this high vantage point. Seeing all of these units like from the ground, for anyone who's played StarCraft, this was huge. You were like, oh my god, this looks amazing. I want to be in that universe.
the stealth.
Well, it's
Yeah,
this- so
see
that's
a
the
Marine
thing.
to the Space Marine. Oh, she threw a grenade in there.
Oh, see, that's so cool. She threw a grenade in his suit.
StarCraft is the spiritual successor to Warcraft.
Yes.
Yeah,
But it never
works in-
got a 3D version World of Warcraft style,
No,
right?
it never got an action or
Was Warcraft first or Starcraft first?
Warcraft,
Warcraft
was
was
first.
It was first.
Because I remember that the little guys would go, "What is it, me lord? Yes, me lord." And then they would say affirmative in StarCraft, or you would know better than me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's another one that never came out.
Never came out. Never, and they
were still talking-
poured,
yeah.
they were like, oh, now it's going to be a PS2 game.
Yeah, they kept
and
moving
a GameCube
moving
game
it forward. So for like 10 years, they were like, we're going to make it eventually.
I think there was even like, oh, we're going to bring it out like on the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and they never did.
For what I understand, they've never canceled it.
What is?
It's
still in
Oh,
It's
wait,
still
you
in
know,
production.
you know what else? Yeah, that's right. There was Phantom Thread. Also had an E3 thing and a demo and never came out, right?
I don't remember about E3, but they've had a demo.
There was
Or-
there was a Silent Hills.
Yeah, the secret Silent Hills teaser, which that OD is supposed to be too. There's a new
That's
trailer
got Jordan Peele in it.
that
That's
he
cool.
put out. It's got a bunch of people in it, and
Wait,
it's
wait.
weird. It's
Can I
just people
see
yelling
Sony's
stuff.
embarrassing E3 2006?
Is that the
Is it the
PSP?
Vita?
Oh, the Vita. I forgot about that.
He's going to say,
Is not
Whoever makes these videos are
Kasserai,
awesome.
that's his name, right?
But it's truly
no,
designed
that's
to
not,
advance our
it's
vision
not Kasserai.
for computer entertainment today. It requires huge financial investment, $599 US, but we must take risks to reap the rewards. $599 US, and we're not about cutting corners to rush a product to market.
Oh, that's him.
And we're certainly not interested in gimmicks.
Phil, today we have the Eye of Judgment. See, I place a card onto the screen here, and a monster instantiates.
And we're certainly not interested in gimmicks.
So you can position this next to your TV screen and see for
Man,
yourself
yeah, this is
coming
this is
up
Wii
behind you.
days, right?
And
When
we're certainly not
we
interested
this is
in
probably
conventional
after. Is it the same as the Wii?
Genji 2 is an
the same,
action
yeah.
game, which is based on Japanese history.
But after
The
Revolution.
essence of the PlayStation
Oh, there's your
DNA
crab
is
thing.
real
Yeah.
change.
The stages of the game will also be based on famous battles which actually took place in ancient Japan.
I was about to say, didn't even say anything about giant crab, but this said a Murkurogami would appear, and
As
I'm
we
pretty
gear
sure
up for
Murkuro's
November
crab.
launch,
Here's a
we're
giant
very excited
crab
to share
monster.
with you the phenomenal progress we've made in just a year's time.
yeah, the price was
When
a
we
huge
entered
sticking
the
point. It was
portable
Oh, yeah, I
space
remember
space
that.
Portable, I often receive two questions. Why did you wait so long? And why now? One single answer. The ability to offer the right product strategy at the right time. It's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer. And as the global leader, our mission at Sony Computer Entertainment.
Yeah,
is
this
to
was
You can
keep
cut it
products
up. You can cut it up, Dylan.
truly
Thanks.
It was a very embarrassing press conference. I mean, and it got a lot of Sony people hyped for sure. Like there were fans
Yeah,
of it.
Alan Iverson, look-alike. I think that. Wait, was that Alan Iverson?
Probably was.
AI.
It looked like him.
But yeah, he's no, I don't
It's
think
not
it is.
paler than
Yeah,
Iverson.
and he looks too young at that point. This is 2006.
Yeah, he was already playing basketball.
Yeah, I mean, E3 was good and bad. My take on it is I have wonderful memories from E3, which was kind of nice to see. But it was, I like those little secret stories too. And the last one I'll share before we finish out is there is news. There is news 26 years in the making. So Spaceworld, a VHS tape has leaked from Spaceworld in which there's a frame of a playable Luigi from Mario 64. It was real.
One frame?
Yeah, Luigi.
I am
Lost beta footage found at the top. That's it. So
Wait, this is
this is
a
20
Luigi's Mansion beta footage. This is Luigi's Mansion beta footage.
I think they're just showing that, but go forward.
talking about hype. That retroactively crushes my spirit.
Actually, this isn't right, Dylan. Just Google Luigi in Mario 64.
All I ever wanted was
Spaceworld
to be playable. There was I'm pretty sure there's April Fool's gag in like ATM 2 that you could do something and then play as Luigi.
Yeah, there you go.
I was never so crushed to find out that was fake.
So this is it. There's a VHS right there. Look at the right side. So there's Mario doing his thing on a demo. That's Luigi.
Okay.
So replay it. So on the right TV, you can see a playable Luigi.
This is all and see, it's in a completely unfinished world.
Yeah. But he was in it. He was in it. This is like amazing. This is amazing Spaceworld news. This is the biggest thing that's ever happened to us, guys.
I'm just thinking of how cool it was that they had this set up with all these CRT televisions. Like they had to haul all that in there.
Yeah, restart it and pause it. Pause.
Yeah, so that's the Super Mario 64 temporary. The other one,
emotional. But this is perfect for our audience. That is what E3 used to be.
Yeah. Well, you see a shadow of something and you analyze the frames, and it was harder back then. You didn't you couldn't just hit screenshot on because you didn't watch on your computer.
Yeah.
Right?
And what are those, like Magnavoxes?
Yeah. Oh,
it was beautiful. A different time. I think E3 was for a different time, and I'm happy to see it, but I think it's appropriate for it to go away now. I don't think we need it, and I think Nintendo Direct still gets me jacked up.
Well, yeah, we have Nintendo Directs. We have now the video. It's called the Video Game Awards or the Game Awards or whatever we are.
Game
Jeff
Awards
Keighley's
now.
Game Awards are basically replacing it for the new Hype Beast trailer reveals, along with some trailers that aren't put out to the public. They're just shown at the show. It's also a streaming show, so sites will rip it, but you don't get like their official release from the studio for a couple of days later. So like that kind of is where people have big events now. It's still a press event, I think. I don't know how that works, but it's mostly a press event.
But it's not Miyamoto with a sword.
No.
Can I see Miyamoto with a sword?
They do have lots of Keanu Reeves coming out pretending to care about video game people at all.
Yeah, what was his line? You're beautiful, you're radiant, something like that.
Yeah, he's like, you're all beautiful souls or something.
Yeah. Miyamoto.
And then
wow, I'm surprised it wasn't the first thing.
I think that's it.
And then this year they had a Xbox 360 controller modder come out on stage.
This was later. That's Skyward Sword.
Yeah, isn't that the one where he came out with the sword?
No, he came out with the sword for Twilight Princess.
It's Miya Miyamoto. What the hell? Scrolling down. This is a great way to end a freaking podcast.
If you just look up Twilight Princess E3.
Keep scrolling down. All right, fine, you win. Twilight Princess E3?
Yeah.
This is great content.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. And at the end of the trailer, he comes out. So,
fast forward.
Yeah, there you go. You're like, who is that?
Yay!
Oh my God.
There's Miyamoto with a sword.
Yeah, it's a Link sword because this is for Twilight Princess.
That was E3, man.
Yeah.
To me, that's what E3 is Japanese guys on stage.
Oh, and this is them making up for what a disaster showing. The
tech demo.
Twilight Princess was I think the last game made on the GameCube and for Wii, and it was a direct response to
how mad they got at Wind Waker.
Yeah, because they wanted what we saw in 2000 at E3.
Yeah, which one of them got a remake for Wii?
Both of them.
Both of them, actually.
Both of them for Switch as well.
But everyone remembers Wind Waker.
Wind Waker's great. I would love a sequel to Wind Waker.
I've played Wind Waker twice.
Two of them.
I've never played Twilight
on
Princess.
the DS.
Oh, I want a full console experience.
Yeah.
Oh, the Minish Cap, right?
No,
there-
after that, there's
I think only one
Spirit
of them
Tracks.
might be a sequel.
Spirit Tracks.
Yeah, Spirit Tracks is a sequel. The other one's not a sequel, it's just same art style.
No, they're both sequels.
You sure?
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
Spirit Tracks specifically is like named as a because it's like after they found land, they started making trains on it.
Yeah, the one Spirit Tracks was actually the sequel on the DS. The first one was called Phantom Hourglass.
Oh, I remember Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah.
If you remember Phantom Hourglass, go ahead and leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Guys, this is Tubby Talk. Thank you so much for joining us, and let us know what you think about E3.
Yeah. See you guys later. Thanks so much for watching.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year. Also, FE3. Yeah, I said it.
YUNKJunk!